You're listening to episode 105 of the Fed and Fearless podcast. On today's episode, I'm chatting with Annie Miller about how to use Instagram to grow your business without losing your mind. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm your host, Laura Schoenfeld, a registered dietitian, nutrition business coach, and online entrepreneur with over 10 years of experience in online business. And I'm here to show you everything I've learned about creating a life and a business that nourishes you. On this podcast, we'll talk about the lifestyle habits, practical strategies, mindset shifts, and leaps of faith required to build a healthy body, a powerful mind, a strong spirit, and a successful business. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm your host, Laura Schoenfeld, and today's episode is going to be something that is especially beneficial for any of you business owners out there who want to use social media, specifically Instagram, to grow your business. Now, I've developed a little bit of a reputation for being somebody who suggests that Instagram is not necessary to grow a business, and I actually still stand by that. I don't believe that Instagram is something that you have to do to grow your business or have to have a big audience to be successful with. However, we can look at Instagram as a tool, and it can be an effective tool for growing an audience that then can convert into paying customers. So that's why I wanted to bring on our guest today. She's somebody who I think handles Instagram really well. She does a really great job of building an audience that is interested in what she has to sell as a business owner. And she's able to keep a level of separation between herself and her activity on the platform. So that way she doesn't, have any sort of negative mental effects from spending time using Instagram. And I do think, just from personal experience and from things that I've heard from other people, particularly clients of mine, spending a lot of time on a platform like Instagram can be incredibly emotionally damaging. And that's why we want to make sure that if we're using it to grow our business, that we're doing it in a way that is not only effective so that we can get the most out of the time that we are spending, but that it's also something that's designed in a way that protects our mental health, which is way more valuable than your business is even. So with all that said, my guest today is Annie Miller. Annie is the CEO and founder of Annie Miller Concepts, previously fitdesignbyannie. After graduating with her degree in exercise and sports science in 2013, becoming a certified strength and conditioning specialist, changing course from college strength and performance coaching to personal training, she then found her calling in the online world of health and fitness. Education and authenticity are at the center of Annie Miller Concepts, two things she saw a shortage of in the online space. She rejects the idea that there is only one way to success, one way to do fitness, or one way to run a business. So for the last 5 years, she has sought to share the power of knowledge and taking action in the weight room, in your business, and in your life. Instagram is her favorite platform for fitness and entrepreneurship, and that's where you'll find her most of the time. Her Instagram handle is at anniemiller.co, and she's definitely someone worth following if you want to learn more about not only getting stronger, but also running an effective business online. So Annie is awesome. We have a lot in common. We've connected a lot over the last year and a half on a personal level, and she's someone who I really respect when it comes to things like her values and, just making sure that she's setting appropriate boundaries with Instagram and really not letting it turn into something that negatively affects her or her mental health. So I'm super pumped to have her on the show today. I think you're going to love the conversation. And without further ado, here is Annie Miller. All right, everybody. Well, I am so excited to have with me on the show today, Miss Annie Miller. Welcome to the Fed and Fearless podcast, Annie.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, Annie and I have been chatting a lot, just via DMs and stuff. So this is actually our first opportunity to have a normal human conversation, which is super exciting. And we're going to talk all about social media today, and specifically Instagram. And something that Annie and I had connected on in the past year or so is kind of our love-hate relationship with Instagram. I think Annie may love it more than I do. I'm like mostly hate from my experience, but just that experience of social media just kind of being really challenging over the last year or two. And especially for new business owners that want to get into it, it can feel really, really daunting. And so Annie does it super well. She also teaches it. So really excited to have her on the show. And we're just going to kind of chat about her expertise and see if we can take a little bit of the anxiety out of Instagram.
I don't know if we can call it expertise. I feel like sometimes I'm just surviving on Instagram with how quickly things change, especially. I've even thought about that with having my Instagram 101 course is just, I guess it's important for me to teach things that work no matter what the algorithm does, right? Like the importance of building a business on Instagram versus just trying to be popular or get attention, but actually be profitable from the platform. So if you can focus on the objective things within Instagram, I think it's very beneficial from a business standpoint because it is so easy to get caught up in the like emotional roller coaster that Instagram can bestow upon people who are trying to find success on the app.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's just really true for business in general. There's so many tools out there that you can use to promote your business, serve customers, that kind of thing. And I mean, I don't know how long you've been in business, but I've been in business for like 8 years now. And I don't even know if Instagram was like a thing when I started my business. It was kind of like, oh, you're doing photos of your food or something or date night or whatever. And now it's like, oh, you got to build your entire empire on Instagram is how some people feel. So a lot has changed, but I think what you teach, and I know I teach my clients similar stuff where it's like, the principles of marketing don't really change. You just have to kind of adapt with the tools that are available.
Absolutely. And I think that's super, super important. And I think that there's also a benefit to, I've been in business for 7 years now. So kind of the same, like I dabbled a lot more in blogging and email marketing before Instagram and before having success on Instagram. So I finally got an Instagram in 2014 or 2015. And it was absolutely like a dark, dramatic filter over the top of your salad with like, eat your greens. And like, that was the literal extent of Instagram. So I think that there is benefit to you, other people who do have a background in business outside of Instagram. Because like you said, people do feel like they have to build their empire on Instagram, and it is wildly useful, but that's also a very dangerous business tactic if that's the only place your eggs are at. Because as we know, I'm not the first person to say this, Instagram can disappear tomorrow. They can be picked up by something else. The app can change. I know that they are going at this time video centric, and that's really off-putting for a lot of people. I have no idea what direction that's going in, what weight can really be put in that statement. I don't know, but the apps change and you need to be willing to adapt with the app, and having those core principles and understanding of just marketing across the board, building an audience across the board, getting people off of the app and onto your website, your mailing list, a different platform is important no matter what the app is doing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So what are some of the mistakes you see new business owners making when they're approaching social media and Instagram in particular?
Not knowing a lot of the basis of their business. So like who their ideal client is and who they're speaking to. So they're approaching the app like, I know I need to be here, but I don't even know what I'm supposed to be saying. I don't know what kind of content I should be creating. Well, if you know your ideal client, your niche, and a little caveat to that as well, or a little tangent, is a lot of times people think of niche as a description of a person. And while it is, your niche is a specific problem that you solve, which can involve men and women. It can involve old people and young people. So yes, while I have people create an ideal client that is like Emily, she's 32, slow drivers in the left lane piss her off. There are descriptors that help you really hone in on that person. But overall, that doesn't matter if you're missing the problem that you solve for people. So if you identify that first, then approaching the platform makes creating content, your messaging, how you interact with your audience much easier because you have clarity on those things. So that's like easily the number one issue that I see is not knowing that. And then that
Yeah.
kind of cascades into all the other mistakes.
Yeah. Well, I love that you said that because I do think the niche thing is really misunderstood and people are like, "Oh, I help moms get into shape." And it's like, yeah, maybe that's helpful that you know that it's moms and that'll guide the content, that'll guide how you speak to them or the kind of things you bring up, the kind of challenges that they're experiencing, but just saying like I help them with their health is so generic. And so I'm so glad that you mentioned the problem thing because that's something that I really my clients will tell you like I hammer it into them that they have to get really clear about that because if you don't, it's like you go and you're thinking I'm going to post some content. Like you said, what the heck are you supposed to post if you don't even know what you're trying to help people accomplish or, what would be relevant content in like kind of the orbit around that
Yes.
problem.
Yes. And I laugh at the moms getting in shape, which is fine. But in my Fitzroy Foundations course, we go over ideal client, obviously. And one of the things that I talk about is every health and fitness coach is helping their client feel confident. I help you feel confident. I'm like, who isn't selling confidence? Like, we've got to get more specific than that. We've got to paint a picture, how that happens, what your approach is, all of these things. So the generic deal is also an issue because you'll hear people talk about how saturated the health and fitness industry is. And I've heard coaches say it's not saturated. And I'm like, I believe that it is. There's the spectrum of health and fitness professional goes so wide within actual professionals, right? But then we have all of the less qualified people.
The influencers.
Giving information as well. So I do think that it's saturated and the more clarity that you can gain on who it is that you're helping, how you're helping them, the problems that you solve, the micro and the macro problems that you solve, the easier it's going to be for you to find your people. And I think that that's also something that's really important to focus on is there are millions and millions and millions of people, if not billions of people, that use Instagram every day. You're trying to find only the ones that resonate with what you're trying to say. And if you can like zoom in on that rather than trying to go wider, but like building an actual engaged audience who is like, wow, I want more information from this person, that's going to be the most beneficial thing as a business. And I think that when we're building a personal brand, it can be very difficult to balance the personal and the brand. But for me, the brand is the biggest piece. And so we need to use Instagram like a business, not like it's your personal account as well. I guess maybe that's like a little caveat, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like you were saying, it's not like you need to be completely removed and there is no personality and people have no idea who you are. But, if you're posting pictures of your vacation on your feed, maybe one might be okay so people can get to know you. But if it's like 9 in a row of your vacation, it's like, all right, is this really serving your audience? And are people going to really keep following if that's what they're getting, most of the time when they're showing up?
Yeah, I think that that's it's a question that I get a lot is like how much personal life to show and how much business to show. And I do think that's a personal decision. There are people that do build their brands on their life and they share a lot more than a different brand would share. And that's another thing I think that a place to gain clarity, not before you show up on Instagram, but just always refining that, what you do choose to share about, what you don't choose to share about. And that can be exhausting in itself. I was just talking to a business client about that. She was like, even just making the decision of like, do I share that I'm in my tub writing captions or don't I share that I'm in my tub writing captions? Like that decision-making process in itself can be exhausting. So I just give validation to that if people are struggling with figuring out what it is that they want to share from their personal life and what they don't.
Yeah. Well, and actually I'm curious. I have a lot of clients who are just very turned off by the idea of using Instagram. And I do tell them that you don't have to use Instagram to have a successful business. So, if you absolutely don't want to use it, anyone who's telling you that you do have to is not correct. However, like what we were saying before, it is a tool and it's a effective tool depending on who your audience is. If your audience hangs out on Instagram, it can be a very effective tool. So do you have any advice for people who are just feeling so repulsed by the idea of using Instagram on a regular basis to grow their business?
Yes, I would say that feeling, I think, grows more and more valid as the platform evolves. I even feel more of that. It is still my favorite platform, but even I, who it is my favorite platform, I still am looking for like my 2 to 5 year plan of not having to be on it. So I get it. I fully get it, especially if you are jumping in now when there is IGTV and reels and regular posts and carousels and going live and all of these things that were not there 6 years ago when it was just a single photo and a caption that was much more manageable. And I give validation to that. So I think that there's a few things. If your audience is actually on Instagram and like that is where you need to be, focus on creating content that is joyful for you to create. That is going to be most important. You can hate the platform, but if you can find a way to hone in on a type of content that you want to create, who freaking cares if it's a video-centric platform? If you love creating little Twitter graphics and that is what is going to go viral within your audience, do that. I follow very successful people that have never gone live. They've never created a reel. They've never posted a carousel. Like you are free to create whatever type of content you want. And I think focusing on that piece of Instagram instead of there's so many options. Yeah, there's so many options. So choose one that you want to be good at and that you enjoy making and that lands well with your audience. Stick to that. Like I am all for that approach, something that is going to be, it's just like health and fitness, like choose what you can adhere to, right? So I would say focus on content that you enjoy. If your audience is not on Instagram and you, for some reason, still want to be on it or think that you might need a presence there. For instance, I have one business client who she posts twice per week. And in her bio, it literally says on Instagram, Tuesdays and Thursdays, or Mondays and Thursdays, or something like that. So when somebody comes to her page, maybe they find her somewhere else, or they find her on Instagram, it's there. They know she's going to be there twice a week. That's what you can expect. And she only keeps it live so that if someone finds her on Google or another platform and they go to her Instagram, it's not like, oh, she hasn't posted in 3 months. I'm not going to follow her, right? She's irrelevant. So that is another tactic that it's just, there's no rule book. There's managing expectations. She's not expecting to grow her Instagram following by posting twice per week, but she does still host a presence on the app that is staying up to date, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's almost like a new form of the business card,
100%.
right? Like hopefully, I don't think anybody, I mean, maybe people still do business cards. I've not received a business card from an entrepreneur in a very long time, an online entrepreneur, but it is something where people do look at this stuff, right? Like if somebody is doing some research on you as somebody who they may want to work with, there's a good chance that they will seek you all out on Instagram to just like check you out, right? Like it's another form of, I guess, just vetting you, if that makes sense. And so if you have nothing, or like you said, it's a post every 6 months or something, that may look a little bit less trustworthy to them than if you are even weekly putting something up that's relevant to the problem that you're solving. So I love that idea because I do think a lot of my clients, being dietitians and nutritionists, even the ones that take insurance, they don't need to necessarily be super active on social media to be getting a steady stream of clients. But I do think there is some level of benefit to just having a little bit of presence and letting people know like, hey, I'm here. This is what I do. Here's how you can connect with me further.
Yeah. And she deletes the app in between those days. So she literally like re-downloads the app on Tuesday, posts, interacts, get off until whenever she's supposed to be on again. And I admire that personally, because that is not a tactic that I think I could use. But again, she like detests Instagram. So that's like a perfect example of your people if you have some clients that feel that way too, but know that they need to be there.
Yeah. And how would somebody know that they need to be there?
I would say past experience for one, and just maybe let's say they know that their ideal client is on Facebook, or maybe their content does better on Pinterest, but they know that that content could also be used on Instagram. that is another multi-purpose way to use your content, I guess, if you know that two platforms have content that would do similarly well to do that. Or if they just know, if you're in the health and fitness industry and the issue that you solve within health and fitness is on Instagram, it's just such a great place to be because people spend so much time there and they're already looking for that information. So you're just inserting yourself into that search. So, I mean, I'm going to say if you're in the health and fitness industry, you probably would benefit from being on Instagram.
Yeah. Well, and like we said, it's an option, but
Yes.
It is something that can be valuable. And hopefully you guys are hearing that it doesn't have to be this like 2 posts a day, full-time job kind of thing where you're just on it all the time and constantly coming up with new content. And actually, I would love to hear your perspective on content creation because so many of my clients, they get frustrated because they're like, I just don't know. Like, I feel like I've said everything. I have nothing new to say. I would love to hear what your feedback is for people who just feel like they constantly have to be coming up with new things to post on social media.
I am a huge fan of repurposing content and accepting that you're going to repeat yourself. If you want to be seen as an authority figure or someone who knows their stuff about a topic, you're going to talk about that topic from 16 different directions. You're going to talk about one piece of one topic from 16 different directions. So accepting that can make a big difference. Like you don't need to feel like, oh, I'm repeating myself because honestly, not everybody sees every post. And people, how many times do you have to hear something when you're being coached for it to actually click? In anything, in jujitsu, in weightlifting, in business, it doesn't matter. When people are learning things, and if people are coming to your page, they're likely earlier in that learning process, they are going to need to see the same thing 12 different ways. So that's just part of the job in being a coach. Even with paying clients, that's part of the job is oftentimes repeating yourself. So accepting that is huge. And then be open to repurposing content or taking one piece of content and breaking it down, especially with, I don't know if this is accurate. This is not backed by science. I don't know if this is even true, but I feel that if anything, the app is favoring shorter attention spans in Instagram, in a lot of different apps, to be honest. So if you can take one piece of content that might be a little bit beefier and break it into 3 different posts, then you have just taken the work that it would normally be to create one post and you've created 3 posts. A very simple thing to do that performs well for myself and my clients is taking your caption and literally just putting the caption into slide graphics. You do not need a fancy template. Straight up text on a white background. Add a little Twitter photo if you want to in Canva. Like, I don't care. Keep it simple. But those perform really well. And it's the same words. I am talking like literally just copying and pasting your caption sentence by sentence or, small paragraph by small paragraph. And it makes it digestible. It also gets that person to spend more time on your post because they're having to swipe and read every single graphic. So things like that, making your content go further, making your content work better for you, and repurposing, taking an old post, create a new graphic, use the same freaking caption, the same one. Edit it if you want to, but you do not need to. I even had one client who was taking her reels, taking the same exact caption, creating a graphic, and posting it a month later with a graphic instead of a reel, same exact caption. People don't notice, they still interact, and it's so much more efficient. So being open to that and not thinking that you have to create something new, especially if you have created a few months of content, you can start recycling that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would imagine you might have like 2 or 3 months of novel content that you could literally just recycle every quarter and,
Yes.
Maybe change some graphics up or like you said, do a little like carousel quote type of thing and, make it really easy. And honestly, that's how I've been approaching the app recently is like, I'm going to have fun with this. I'm not going to take it too seriously. I'm not going to get involved with all the drama. I'm just going to think what would be something valuable I could share with my audience that's relevant to the problem that I solve for my clients and share it. And half the time I'm going back and seeing posts that did well that I'm like, can I use that caption again? It's one of these things where I think people assume it has to be new stuff all the time and that you're in this constant creativity mode. And And I know that there are people that do that. Most of them are people that are selling Instagram courses and that kind of thing, right? Like the ones that are like selling social media are the ones that are doing it professionally. But if you're not selling social media, you don't have to make this a full-time job, and it can be easy. And you can make it be easy if you take some of the expectation out of what does it look like to do it well.
Yep. And I think you nailed it when you said to have fun. That's every single time I make a satire reel about the algorithm, which goes viral, which is the irony that I love. The caption is always, it goes back to, if you feel like the algorithm is eating you alive, or that, 0.3% of your audience is seeing your information, screw it and have fun. Just create for the sake of creating what you want to create. There is nothing wrong with that. And often that content does better anyway. So I am all for that, having fun.
And then you can reuse it later in a couple months.
Exactly.
Every time you create something new, you just added like weeks of content to your timeline.
Well, and people always ask, like, do you need a blog? And I don't think blogging is dead, but I think that if you are creating longer form Instagram posts, you might as well be uploading them to your website because it can live forever there. You can direct people there, and then it's your website versus Instagram. So that is something that I have implemented in 2020 and 2021 is like taking my Instagram posts from 2019 till now and doing blogs 2 times a week. So I don't think you can repurpose, I guess, content from the get-go, but your message will refine itself as you grow. So I think that definitely if you have some decent content under your belt, looking for ways to repurpose that and making that content go further is something you should be focusing on if you are not yet.
Mm-hmm, definitely. So I feel like another thing that makes people afraid of getting involved in social media and Instagram is the haters that are out there. And having had some conversations with you about all the craziness on social media in the last few years, I know that you've probably experienced your fair share.
I have.
And I'm just curious, you're still alive. So how did you survive the experience?
I actually just made a post about this the other day, and I don't know when this podcast will go live. So that's irrelevant of when I posted it, I guess. But definitely knowing your core values is very important. And that is something that I teach in my biz course, like before we even get into business, is your core values, because those are going to permeate everything that you do. And I think that people should be able to see that, and that should be more important than anything else. Any words you say don't matter if your actions don't back them up, right? And so I think that knowing that, I think that understanding that this is free content, you aren't holding anyone hostage. If people are coming to your page, they are choosing to take in your content. And you have choices, you have boundaries, you have resources to block, delete, filter. Those are there for a reason. And while I do think that conversation is important, I don't know how productive comment sections of Instagram are for the types of conversations that might be happening. I think that they can be more productive definitely in the DMs, but I think that if anyone is coming to your platform and spewing misinformation, for instance, I have a business client, she's a pelvic floor specialist, her reel was going viral. And that's mostly when it happens. If you're just posting content and your audience is interacting, most of the time, they either respect you, and if they disagree, they're just going to let it go, right? They're going to be an adult and be like, this one's not for me. Or they are free to unfollow, and that's fine as well. It's when something goes viral and people are coming to your page who don't follow you, who know nothing, and feel the need to either spread misinformation like this, the people responding on her pelvic floor reel. And, she was like, do I delete stuff? Do I not delete stuff? Do I just leave it there? And that's a personal decision. I wouldn't tell anyone to do anything. Some people are like, leave everything there and people can decide what they want to do with that platform. Other people are like, this is my corner of the internet and I'm not okay with that being said in my corner of the internet. I am for both of those things. I think it's situational and I think it's a gut thing for each individual person. But that is something that happens, especially with the viral ability of reels. Multiple clients of mine have had a reel go viral and then the trolls roll in. And I think one, remembering that these people don't follow you. They're not on the edge of their seat to purchase anything from you, right? And after all, this is a business account. That's where that personal and business comes into play again, and knowing the resources that you have as a business to manage your space, and that is your call. Nobody gets to take that from you. So that's that.
Well, and to add to that, I'm curious, I have some clients who I think when we get down to brass tacks about it, they're actually more afraid of other nutritionists and other health professionals coming after them, which I mean, I guess happens sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I forget how crazy it can be because I'm not super like active there. So I probably can fly under the radar a little bit. But I've had some clients before where they would post something and other dietitians or doctors and stuff would come out of the woodwork and just like be like, you're wrong, and like get really angry and hostile about it. So I feel like that feels different than some random like troll that's just like, oh, you're stupid or whatever, or saying something inappropriate on your page. So do you have any advice for people who one of the reasons they hold back on sharing is because they're worried about criticism from actual like peers and people who, are a little bit more close to home than random strangers?
I think that one thing to realize when you are putting out mass amounts of information is you're going to get it wrong sometimes. Like you are going to say the wrong thing or get a fact incorrect or whatever. I had it happen actually with a post that I was talking about plyometrics. And I had a few people in the medical field, people above me in physical therapy clinics, correcting something that I said. And while it's like, I'm just trying, like, I'm not talking to doctors and physical therapists. The person that I'm talking to does not need to actually know that fact. Like, I could be incorrect on that. The point of the post was not what you are picking out. So there's nuance to it. But I think that knowing that you will get it incorrect is important sometimes because you will. And that hopefully, in my experience, more often than not, people don't react that way if they're an actual professional. And I would not hesitate to block someone who approached me like that personally. Like that's if you approached me like that in the workplace, hell no, right? Like it's not professional. What are you doing? If we are both professionals, if it is an actual professional in this field, hopefully they would have the respect for you if you did get a fact wrong to say, hey, I saw your post, loved the point about X, but can we maybe have a conversation about this fact that could be misleading or left some things out? And I think that that's fine, right? I do think that accountability and conversation is important in a DM. I do not see how commenting on another professional's post and, blasting them or speaking to them in a condescending manner is productive. That's to make you feel better about yourself. And I would absolutely delete that comment and or respond and pin it to the top so everyone could see.
Either get rid of it or put it out front and be like, this is what's happening.
Yeah,
oh my gosh,
either
that's
get
so
rid
funny.
of it or make an example of it.
Oh,
is what I would personally do.
I love how it's like literally black and white. It's like these are your options. It's just really funny. I don't think I've ever pinned a comment before, but
I haven't either.
know for the future if I want to like put that out there. So another thing that I've seen you deal with that I think we could come at from two different angles, but I'm going to come at it from the creator angle is the concept of being plagiarized on social media. And, I don't think we necessarily need to talk to people about not doing that because I think, hopefully my listeners are, aware that that's not a good idea. But what would you do if you felt like you were seeing somebody copying your stuff? Because I know this hasn't really happened to me on social media. I did have an incident in the past where my sales page copy was reused and allegedly it was done by a copywriter. So, questionable of who actually did the plagiarism. But I do know I have some clients that are like, I see this person kind of doing stuff that looks exactly like mine. And do I need to say something? So what advice would you give if you feel like somebody, I know there's a difference between blatantly like you copied that word for word versus like imitation. So maybe we could address both.
I think that's super important. So, for instance, I have had both happen where I see someone who is clearly taking my content as inspiration for their content, and we emulate people we look up to. That's very natural. I am sure that someone would look back on my posts from 2017 and see Hillary Rushford or other professionals in my content, the style and things of that sort. She's a personal stylist though, so like obviously I'm not plagiarizing her content, but you could probably see parallels in that. And I think that's fine. I think that finding people you look up to, whether they're in your industry or not, you like the way that they create their content, you like the editing style they use, whatever it might be, and you're taking that and applying it to your content, but it's original content, totally fine. Awesome. Even I did like a series on Instagram that was like cues for deadlift, cues for squat, like all the big lifts. And they were the same exact format, swipe graphic. And my follower, this is how you normally find out, a follower sends you like, hey, saw somebody doing this, thought you should know. And I looked at it and it was almost the same exact graphic, but in their brand colors. But when I swiped, she came up with all of her own cues. None of it was plagiarized. So I just DM'd her and was like, hey, just letting you know, a follower sent me this. Like, I saw that you totally created your own cues. Flattering, maybe use a different graphic and don't make it like exactly the same. Because obviously if someone else saw it and thought, this person is copying Annie, that's not good for this chick's brand either. So we had a conversation. She was like, oh, absolutely. I just love everything you do. And it was a simple conversation. Private, done. I will say that if I think someone is copying me or someone has told me that they're copying me, I will follow them. I will follow that person as kind of a first line of, you would think that person would mess their pants a little bit. Like, my butthole just got a little tight because the person I'm copying just started following me. But a lot of times people don't think that they are doing anything wrong. They don't feel that until they get called out or someone approaches them. So on the actual plagiarism side where I had someone take not my course, but my copy from several of my courses on their sales page and take my Instagram post verbatim, clear out where my brand was, everything. That needs to be dealt with carefully from a legal standpoint. Obviously, in the online space, it is harder to regulate plagiarism, especially with free content and whatnot. Do you know Sam Vander Wielen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I definitely suggest all of her legal course, her ultimate bundle, all of her resources. If anyone is listening and is curious about that, I'm obviously not a lawyer, but having her bundle and having her resources made me feel like, oh, I have what I need to know that I have all of the right terms and conditions and, my content can't be redistributed, recreated, whatever. Like I knew that I had my legal side set up. So that does make you feel a lot better when somebody does plagiarize your stuff. I'll just put that out there. The other thing is that I think screenshotting as much as you possibly can before you actually contact the person is important because people will pull things down so fast, just so fast. So get all of your evidence. And then I do think that just contacting that person, I say via DM because Instagram is the only place that I've had the experience directly, contacting them and just send them the screenshots. This is what I've seen. This is my content. Pull it down immediately, or I will X, whatever you want to say your next step is. That is what has worked for me personally. And typically people just tuck their tail. I'm so sorry, pull everything down. But then, like I said, I follow the people forever and always afterwards to manage that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's interesting because I feel like so many of my clients are so paranoid that they're going to post something that's even remotely similar to somebody. And I'm like, it's okay. Like science is pretty universal. I mean, if you're talking about evidence-based practices for, PCOS or something, and somebody else talked about it, they didn't create that fact. You're allowed to talk about the same things. And I think sometimes people can get really paranoid about that. But then obviously there's a big difference between having a similar viewpoint and talking about something in a similar way versus, like you said, editing
literal
out
plagiarism.
your like watermark or something on the image. So
yeah.
And I do feel like, from a mindset perspective, people who are copying others, they're always going to be a step behind. So they're not ever like, I mean, maybe there's some businesses out there that got really famous from plagiarism. I think I can think of a couple examples of famous people that were called out, but it is something where most people are not going to grow a successful business just by copying somebody else. And so it's on one hand, yes, like if somebody's plagiarizing you, you have every right to pursue a legal recourse. But on the other hand, I think it's helpful to remember that it's not necessarily going to negatively impact your business in a substantial way.
It's more of a violation, if anything, right? It really doesn't do anything to your business. They're probably not taking business from you. That's a reality. It's more of just, how hard you've worked for the content that you create, and then someone has taken advantage of that. That's like the root feeling that gets people. But I mean, all in all, if it is someone in the same industry, you want good for them. You want them to create content and to not copy. So I think giving people the chance to do that and not like blasting them or publicly shaming them. Like, I don't think that is, one, it's just not professional. And I don't think that it's the way to go. So a private conversation and giving that person a chance to change while managing it. It's not like, oh, the slate is clean, you're fine. I don't think that's the way either. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think there should be a level of, I guess, grace given, especially if it's like, well, that seems similar. It's not the exact same. Because I have had clients before that created their own thing. And then somebody was like, oh, you copied me because you have the same number of steps as I do. And it's like, I'm allowed to have something that's a 6-step process. It's a totally different process. You don't own the number 6, right? It's like, that's the kind of thing where, and I do think a lot of that comes from a scarcity mindset where somebody is feeling threatened. And that's why they come after you and say like, you can't do that because I did it first. So it is something where, and I agree, like understanding the legality of things and having a lawyer or having someone like Sam on your team to be able to help you with that kind of thing is really helpful, because I do think on one hand, yes, like you shouldn't be copying people. It's not good for your business and it's not legal. But also, if you're talking about the same topic, the likelihood that there's going to be overlap in ideas and topics and that kind of thing is very high. And if somebody's telling you, you can't talk about this because I talked about something a little bit similar, it's just ridiculous. So I do think understanding like what somebody can say if they think you're copying them and that you're not. But again, we're not lawyers, so this isn't legal advice.
Yeah.
But it is something where it's like, I just think I've seen people unfortunately get really freaked out by somebody coming after them that had no grounds for it, but doing that whole like anonymous blasting on stories about how they're being copied and that kind of thing. And it's just, it's ridiculous. And I do think this is what creates that kind of toxicity that exists on social media that turns a lot of people off. And it's why, there was a period of time where I was like, I'm out, unfollowing everybody. And the only reason why I came back is because I was like, I see this as an opportunity to connect with clients, and I can approach it in a way that just kind of keeps me out of the drama. And I think it's possible. It's not, especially when you have a bigger account than I do. I think you have more, people that are possibly ready to rumble than I do, but it is something where I think we can do it in a way that doesn't create this like horrible experience where you just feel like it's a minefield when you log in. So just as far as using social media to actually grow your business, I would love to just kind of wrap up with that topic, because you had mentioned it at the beginning, and I do think it's really important, because ultimately I believe if you're going to use social media for business, use it for actual business growth, right? Like, don't just go on there because you think it's nice to have a certain number of followers, or it like gives you this sense of validation because you're getting likes. Because I have clients that have like hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram, and they try to sell something and it's just crickets, right? So, and we don't want that. That's really disappointing and like a huge bummer when you have that experience. So we want to make sure it's effective for growing the business if you're going to spend time there. So any like baseline level tips that you feel like people absolutely must keep in mind when they're using Instagram to actually sell services that will make sure that it's effective for them?
Yes. I think what you said just about remembering that you are there for a business, like Aerie doesn't question sending you an email about their clothing for you to purchase it. That's what they're there to do. I am selling something all the time. I tell my clients to be selling something all the time. And that's not in a salesy way. Ideally, you are providing a ton of value, which is where post frequency can matter because it gives you an opportunity to post free stuff in between selling. So if you are just getting on Instagram and all you're doing is selling, that is not ideal. But if you can be posting free content consistently and kind of sandwiching free content with sales, that's ideal. Also, talking about your offers is something I think people don't do often enough. Not selling the offer, but just if I'm talking about tempo, so strength coach is my background. If I am talking about tempo or, why I used a certain set and rep scheme or why I paired two exercises together, I'm going to mention in Built by Annie, this is how I do these things. It's just a little plug of awareness that you have an offer called Built by Annie, and it has to do with strength training. So I don't think people drop their offers enough. I actually did some market research one time with all of my offers and asked my audience if they were aware of them. And I was very happy to see that everyone knew about all of my offers, or a large percentage of people knew about all of my offers. And that's not because I'm selling all of my offers all the time, but I do mention them frequently. So if you have a signature offer, most of what your content is probably going to be pulled from the tactics, philosophies, approaches that you use in that signature offer. So mention it. Just make intentional action to plug that into your normal free content. And again, it's not an ask for a sale. It is just to build awareness that you have an offer. You're a business. I have followed people before where they have a large following and I'm like, what do they do? Like, how do they make money? That should not be a question. But if you have an Instagram for a business purpose, it should not be a question of what you do to make money. So busting out free content is king, queen, whatever you want to call it. I do believe that. And making sure that the content is pulled from, I teach mother categories, which are kind of your go-to things that you're going to repeat over and over again. But those should probably be pulled from your offer or your approach within your offer, your coaching philosophy, assuming that we're talking to coaches. So that is what I would say as far as actually being profitable. And then on the launching side of things, obviously you don't have to launch. So some people call to action would be to apply to work with them. Maybe they have open enrollment all the time. If you're doing a live launch, I think that a mistake that is made a lot of times, I guess, is that lack of awareness. And people just come on when they have an offer that they're finally ready to sell. And they're like, so I have this thing, buy it. And they have not educated or prepped their audience to be aware of what this is and who it's for and what it does and all of that. So I really think spending more time educating your audience is really important, and remembering that you're the leader of your audience. So if they aren't responding to something or reacting to something, it's a look in the mirror moment of, where am I missing the mark here? What is not landing with them? Or do I need to say it differently? Am I not touching on the right pain points, pleasure points? And I know some people feel like pain and pleasure points are manipulative. I like to look at pain and pleasure points as pain is just what they're experiencing now, their current state. What are their past experiences? What are their current frustrations? The pleasure point is just where they want to be. So can they even paint that picture yet? Do they even know what the possibility is for them? So a food freedom coach talking about food freedom, well, someone who wants that might not even know that exists or that that's possible for them. So that's why I say knowing your ideal client, knowing what problem you solve is really, really important, because that's where all of your content is going to come from. And that should tie back to your offer and eventually people paying you for more information or the exact process that you use.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I feel like one of the issues that I see, and in the MBA program, this is what we correct because it's such a common thing for nutrition professionals, is that they don't have a clear offer and they don't have a process that they take people through. So to create content that drives people to that offer, it's kind of impossible, because it's if you don't even know where people are supposed to go, how are you supposed to know where they need to go to get there, right?
Yep.
And so it sounds like you have a very similar approach to me where it's
Yes.
like, let's figure out what problem do you solve? How do you solve that problem? Make sure that you have a clear offer around that. And then once you have your offer really established, then you can make the messaging and the content to drive everybody to that offer in a really simple way. And so I do think that people tend to do it backwards for whatever reason. It's like, I'm going to get popular on Instagram and then I'm going to figure out how I'm going to make money or how I'm going to work with clients. And it's just like, it's like, no wonder you don't know what you're supposed to post. Cause I mean, how could you know what to post if you don't even know what the end goal is? It's like, I'm going to go get in my car and start driving. You're not going to get anywhere if you don't actually know where you're trying to end up, right?
Exactly.
So it's the same thing with, and this isn't just for Instagram, as you know. I mean, you've been on long enough where blogging and all that, like that's really that's how I came up, was the good old fashioned blog. And so it is something where even that was always like, okay, how is this driving somebody to the next step? Even if it's just, let's book a call to work together kind of thing. So none of that has changed. It's all the same. It's all, pretty consistent marketing strategy. And I do think when you have that information, it will be easier to figure out, okay, what kind of stuff can I talk about that naturally leads people to desire the offer. And I love what you said about dropping the offer, even just the name, like mentioning it. You're not necessarily selling it all the time, but that's something that my coach, James Wedmore, teaches us in his messaging teaching is don't wait until you're selling to talk about the offer. Like you should be talking about the offer all the time. And when you start to sell it, especially in like a webinar or a launch or something like that, it shouldn't be this like shock that, oh my gosh, you're selling something, right? It should be weaved throughout all of your messaging to say like, this is what I do, this is how I help people, and here's something that we teach and I want to share it with you kind of thing. So, so I love that you brought that up because I do think sometimes people are very awkward about like, I'm not going to talk about my offer until, oh, cart's open, let me like blast you with it and then never talk about it again. And that's obviously not a effective way to get people interested in paying for your services.
No. And like people come into your audience at a different time as well, especially on Instagram. If you might look at my account right now, I have 31.9 or something, 31.9 thousand followers. That's not the same followers. If you look at my actual like insights, it looks like this crazy up and down loss and gain of followers. So making sure, that's why I talked about at the beginning, those objective things. You can feel like, oh, my audience isn't growing. It is though. You have new followers that you need to speak to and reintroduce yourself and bring awareness to your offer. So you're always talking about those things because there are these fluxes in your audience, especially on Instagram.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I was looking at my insights because I had a client who was like, I posted some stuff with my new niche and I lost followers. I was like, good, that's probably supposed to happen if you're doing it right. So, and I was showing her a screenshot of my last 90 days on Instagram. And it was like, I had gained like 60 total followers and the overall turnover was like 900 or something. I was like, so I lost 840 and I gained 900 basically was kind of the number. So I think it is helpful, especially when people don't realize that that's normal, to share about that kind of stuff because it's like, you just gotta like not worry about it so much. It's not that big of a deal. And the people who are meant to work with you are not the ones that are leaving.
Yeah. They weren't on the edge of their seats to pay you money. So let them go. And
maybe they'll be back.
And right? And that's the thing too. I've said that to a few of my just DM conversations around following and unfollowing people, is that I unfollow accounts all the time for a multitude of reasons that have nothing to do with the account itself, right? So we take it so personal on our end when somebody unfollows us, when we have no idea why they unfollowed. If they were just doing a clean sweep, if it was something we said, if it's just that they're trying to get down to 100 followers and not have to see as much content overall, like there are so many reasons someone can unfollow. And I think keeping that, I also say like sell from a consumer standpoint, and I create from a consumer standpoint as well, or I function on Instagram from a consumer. Think about the content that you see and how you function on the app as a consumer, and keep that in mind when you're creating or selling on the app.
Mm-hmm. So, I've unfollowed because I'm like, I don't remember why I started following this person in the first place. Like, You just like don't even remember how they ended up there. And I swear I saw one the other day that I was like, I don't think I did that. So I don't know how that happened. Like I literally have no clue why I would be following this person. And I'm like, that feels weird.
Yep. I have definitely had that happen.
Is it real? Do you think it's like weird? Like, I don't know. I really feel like I got hacked or something. I was like, it was some really sketchy, like marketing account. I was like, there's literally no reason I would have ever followed that. And so it was really
it's kind of the same when like I'll start getting emails from someone and I'm like, I definitely never subscribed to this, which isn't legal, but I do think the same can happen on Instagram only because on multiple occasions I have had that happen where I'm going through who I followed and I'm like, I literally can't even fathom how that would have ever happened. So
I'm glad I'm not the only one. I was very creeped out by it. And then there's the other side of it where I'm sure you probably get the same experience where there's a bunch of like bots that will start following you. And so if those got cleaned from Instagram, that's going to drop your follower count. So it's like, you never know. It could literally have been a bot that left.
Yeah, you never know. And I encourage people to clean their following because it doesn't do anything for you to have a large following that isn't engaged. It's literally better to have a smaller audience with a higher engagement than the other way around. So it's like when people focus on the number on the scale, like what value are you tying to the number on the scale versus all of the other factors that we can look at. So I encourage people to go through, especially if a reel goes viral or something like that, people get a huge influx of followers and then those people don't engage with them. And that hurts other things on the platform. Their story views, the post engagement, all of that. So I don't think we need to clean out everyone who's not engaging, but there's obvious follows that you can clear out yourself. And that is going to help you overall on the app.
Yeah, it is pretty easy to tell when somebody's a bot, I will say.
Yeah.
So, well, Annie, I feel like I could talk to you for a lot longer, but we're going to have to wrap things up, but I know that people are going to want to learn more from you and, just get all this juicy information about how to survive on Instagram and not just survive, but also thrive, like actually be able to grow your business. And because again, I feel like, and I know you agree with this, why are you on there if it's not benefiting your business as a business, right? Like you can have a personal account, make it private, like don't get involved with all the craziness. But if you're doing it for your business, either do it well or don't do it at all. It's like, there is no like, I'm just going to kind of mess around and be stressed about it and, freak out every time a bot gets cleaned off my list. I just feel like it's like, either do it well or don't do it at all. So if people want to learn more from you, which I'm sure they will, where can they connect with you?
On Instagram for sure.
On Instagram.
Find me on the gram at anniemiller.co. And then that is literally my website as well. So anniemiller.co. I do have an Instagram course, Instagram 101. If they're on my mailing list, they get a discount on that, hidden discount. And they can find all that on my website. And then I have a free workshop, Your Biz, Your Way, 3 Steps to Build a Profitable Online Health and Fitness Business. And I'm sure that you can put that link in the show note, but it is all on my website at anniemiller.co.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Well, we will put links to that in the show notes, both to her Instagram 101 course and that free training and her Instagram account. So you can go follow her. And she does some of the best lip syncing reels that I've ever seen in my life. It's very impressive. And I know you have a cheerleading background that was helpful for that. So I'm always impressed and I try to do it and I'm like, man, this is hard. So it's just entertaining to watch what you come out with.
Well, thank you. I'm glad it's appreciated.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Annie, for your time and expertise and helping everyone feel a little bit less terrible about social media. And thanks to all of you for hanging out with us for the last hour or so. We'll look forward to seeing you here next week on the Fed and Fearless podcast. Take care, everybody. Are you a nutritionist or dietitian struggling to figure out how much to charge for your programs and services? Maybe you've heard that as a nutritionist, you should just charge what you're worth. But this way of thinking can cause you to either undercharge your clients or work yourself into the ground trying to earn your worth. As a healthcare provider, you can't set up a pricing structure that forces you to sacrifice your own health and well-being in the name of your business and your clients. But I promise it doesn't have to be this way. When you download my free profit planning workbook, I'll walk you step by step through the 10-step process for determining the right pricing for your nutrition business. As a nutritionist, you have the power to completely change someone's life for the better. There's huge value in that, so it's time to stop underselling what you do. By following along with this worksheet, you can determine exactly what you need to charge to achieve your revenue goals with ease. I'll teach you everything I've learned about pricing from growing my own nutrition business to over $250,000 in revenue annually and helping other dietitian and nutrition entrepreneurs hit their first $10,000 to $30,000 months and beyond. To get your free workbook, go to lauraschoenfeld.com/profit, PROFIT, and grab your copy today, so you no longer have to wonder how to set the right rates for your incredibly valuable nutrition services. That's lauraschoenfeld.com/profit. It's time to make the money that you deserve as a nutritionist, and I can't wait to help you get there.